Um, all right, everybody can see the video, okay? Okay, there we go. April 12th. All right, I'm dropping the link in the chat for y'all. Dave, that's fantastic. There's the YouTube link for class today. All right, everybody, video's good. Audio's okay, I hope. Alrighty. So first thing I wanted to hit on was a big celebration. This right here, this. That's how many days we have left. And I know you. I was going to say nobody's more excited about this than I am, but I'm. It's probably not strictly true. That there may be some odd one or two of you that are even more excited about this than I am. But I'll just say I'm going to give you a run for your money on the relative excitement factor. Um, but I am very excited. Um, and so here's the schedule. Let me back it up over here. Here's where we are. I guess I blew this up and made it a little bit unreadable. What I decided, so the calendar, there's no class on the 27th is the official last day of the semester. 26th should be our last day, but I decided, doggone it, we get to do what we want. So what we're going to do is we're going to do reading circles. Well, we're going to talk about the second book today, and then Thursday would be employment. Then next Tuesday is personal and professional ethics, and then the following Thursday is wrap up plus literary extravaganzas. Okay, Dave said I'm noticing masks out again. I've heard about a potential surge, COVID surge. I don't know. Anybody got any info on that? I heard, man, there was some city, Philadelphia. It seems like there was some city out east. Yeah, Sam said, not again, please. I'm with you on it. I'm just like, so my wife was in France last week, and she said she was in this restaurant, and um, probably in Paris. Yeah, Daniel, here's this comfy. Yeah, fine. Um, but I don't like to wear the mask no matter what. But anyway, she said that this lady came in, American, and she was like, table for one. And so she's like, the server, greeter, seater, whatever, was like, yeah, over there, that table for two. So she went over and sat at a table for four. And the server lady came over to her and she's like, no, you need to sit in the table for two, right? And she said, I'm socially distancing. And my wife was just standing by watching this exchange. She says, I'm socially distancing. And this server in this restaurant in Paris just goes, we're done with that. Just like, we're done with that kind of thing. So I don't know. Oh, and there's one more here. It's not going to work if I play it, and it'll probably get pulled for copyright anyway. But I'm going to drop you a link. Um, it's a relatively new Saturday Night Live, and I know I risk losing like all of you for the next 5 minutes, but this is one of the best SNL skits of all time. And one of the reasons why, let me just say this, we've talked about politics and our viewpoints about things and what have you. And one of my kind of pet peeves cuts both ways is where somebody is simply parroting the talking points of a political party and thinking that somehow that's funny. Like, those Democrats, they're so stupid. Ha, ha, ha. You know, those Republicans, they're so stupid. Ha, ha, ha. It's not funny. It's really not funny because you're not making any real humor. What I really like about this particular SNL skit, about 5 minutes long, skit, whatever we call it, is it kind of just throws open the idea. If you watch it, every time somebody says something, um, controversial about masks, then everything freezes and everybody has this like nobody can talk. It's kind of like a weird. And what's really interesting is it's what I really love about it is it's kind of a um, cross the threshold politically. You can be in dinner conversation with, from sort of anti-vaxxers on one side to shut the whole world down, folks on the other side. And they tend to loosely follow more conservative to more leftist, but it's not a strict thing. Was it Philly? Okay. Um, but what's interesting is that just the fact that no matter who you're talking to, it's like you can't just have a conversation. It has to be this horrifically, loaded topic. And the skit is, I think, absolutely hilarious. So I encourage you to give it a watch. I think you'll find it sort of like, oh, equal opportunity funny and maybe equal opportunity offensive. And I think that the mark of good humor, I think, sometimes is when you can kind of offend a wide spectrum of people potentially. Um, okay, let's see what else. That's what I wanted to say about that. Yeah, so I don't know if there's another surge. I feel like everybody is, I don't know, we just getting on with it. Then there'll be a new one, and that's the one that'll like kill half the world or something. I don't know. But I think we're all a little weary after 2.5 bloody years. Well, two and a bit. We're coming around on 2.5, you know, years of the shutdown with its own collateral damage. We have to. I think it's been enough time that people can admit this, that there has been a significant collateral damage in terms of mental health, suicide, which goes along with mental health, and other kinds of health, you know. So it's not like it's a simple equation, put on your mask and save lives. It's not a simple equation. And I think you all know that I've had no problem, being compliant. I am double vaxxed and boosted. I have had no problem. I'm not saying that from a sort of an anti-vax perspective, which in its own way has its own legitimacy of perspective, as does the other extreme. So you know me, you know where I'm at. I'm a radical centrist. Um, okay. Yeah, Sam, can we agree the last 2 years don't count? Can we just get a mulligan on those? Oh man, yes. Yes, I'm all for that. Okay. All right, here's what I want to talk about. Let's talk about books. Let's talk about the books. Now, what you notice up here is on this day, being today, being the 12th of April, being the 12th day of the month called April, we have your second book completed and the reading 17. Wait, no, back there. One of these should have been the second book. But I think it actually gets, I can't remember where we put the points. But anyway, I want to talk about them. So here's what I want to do. For starters, I just want you to drop into the chat, if you would, the name of your second book. And based on the number of people in the chat, which is 30, we can kind of go through. And it's going to probably be better if you can talk do the verbal thing, which will go out to YouTube. I'm pretty darn sure. So give those a dump. And I want to start with the way we can do this. We've done this different ways. Drop those if you would. What have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 13. I got 13 so far. 14. Come on. 15. 16. We got 17. I lost track. We're still about only a little. Yeah, Jake read a different one. It's called 1894. It was an older. It was an older book by George Orwell. Um, yeah, the prequel, right, Jake? So DWK again, 1894. Are you being funny or come on? Okay, so we got 31 people in the chat. Let me just count. I'm going to count these now. 2, 3, 6, 9, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. 23. Got 23 out of 31. Yeah, Dave, we're dropping book titles. Specifically the ones you read. So what I wanted to do was okay. I think we got most of them. I'm sure there's a few of you that didn't get it done. Still want to have the discussion today. Um, let's start with. I think that yeah. Let's start with 1984. And would you guys mind going on open mic? And then what I'd like to do is let me just make sure. I just want to make sure that the audio is working. Get to do what we just make sure. Okay, can I get somebody just to say something out loud? I want to just make sure it shows up on YouTube. I just want to make sure that the audio is working. Get to do what we just make sure. Okay, can I get somebody just to say something out loud? I want to just make sure it shows up on YouTube. I just want to make sure that the audio is working. Get to do what we.
There, are you able to hear me?
Yep. All right. Okay, we're good. We're good. All right, I can delete that thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So your audio is coming through on YouTube. Um, all right, let's talk about. Okay, so 1984. Here are the panel. Okay, it's going to be Micah, CR, Steve, Brandon, Cami, Christian, Isley, Jake, who read 1894, DW, who also read 1894 in a shocking coincidence. So there are 9 of you that read 1984, and I just want to know what you thought, and if you're being shy or whatever, would rather not have your voice on the YouTube thing, it's fine. But I just want to know what you thought of it. I think it's an amazing book. Lay it on me. Audio or text is fine, but audio might kill the dead space on the YouTube transmission. What say? I think 1984 should be required reading. It's my own opinion. And I think I said this while I'm waiting for somebody either to interrupt me with audio or to finish a typed chat. Uh, I think that there is a tendency for folks reading 1984 to see the opposing political opponent in the work, so that if you're a dyed in the wool card carrying leftist, you'll tend to see 1984 and you'll think it's Trump and Trump is big brother. And if you are a right wing political conservative, you will tend to see government overreach in Big Brother. And there are elements of both across the spectrum uh, that I think are valid. That there's points to be made. Um,
Anyone hear me?
yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. From what I gathered from it, obviously the super surveillance state is very interesting, and I don't know. I see that even today. Like I was having a conversation with one of my friends, and uh, I had pulled the data that Discord collects on you because you can just request it, and we were just looking through it out of curiosity. And he's like, "See, I don't have to worry about anything because I just don't say anything questionable over Discord." And I'm like, "See, that's a problem though. You shouldn't have to live your
Yeah,
life,
yeah. Like,
right?"
why I love Big Brother. You know,
It's like,
like,
yeah, I'm like, no, no, no. You shouldn't have to live your life in a way that you're worried about saying something controversial like that. That's
yeah,
the idea of Big Brother. And
yeah.
he was like, I guess you kind of got a point there. I was like, yeah, you know.
Yeah, I like that, Brandon. No, I think so. One of the things that people will say when it comes to privacy and intrusion, and 1984 is very much about privacy, right? And we've reached a point after 9/11. So for about 20 years, we've had with the what was it, the Patriot Act? You know, it's always the God Bless America Act. You know what I mean? It always has every piece of legislation ever. You know, there's never the Trash the Ever Loving Economy Act or the Plunge Poor People Deeper into Poverty Act, even if that's the effect, right? It's always, you don't want the Save the World from Poverty Act. What are you, some kind of heathen? Um, but anyway, with the Patriot Act, right, it opened the door. You read the things about like Snowden, and you see, just that incredible level of intrusion. And are you willing to let go of that intrusion, and let that be a thing in order to be secured? Because that same power in the hands of government, you know, it can kind of keep you safe, and it can also make you ultimately unsafe. And I think 1984 is a cautionary tale, written specifically with the Soviet Union in mind. Um, Orwell was writing, and the same with Animal Farm, was writing specifically to and about the Soviet Union and communism. Um, Jacob said, I like the philosophy of it. Did something really happen if nobody thinks it happened? Now, this actually relates a lot to, we talked a little bit about, Hitler and the Great Lie, which he talked about in Mein Kampf. I mean, just straight up, this idea that you just say something enough and that becomes the truth. And that, to me, that was one of the scariest parts. I haven't voted for like a mainstream political candidate in at least a decade, right? So this cuts equally, but one of the things that scared me the most about Trump was his tenuous uh, connection to objective reality, things that are actually verifiable, like the biggest most well attended inauguration in history is just demonstrably and empirically false. You can say he's good for America or he was a good or bad president, and that's subjective. But when you start talking about this number was bigger than that other number, to me that gets a little bit scary. And then for those of you that are Trumpkins, you know well enough to know that I see similar crazy things out of the other side. But Dave said, I think pathological liars lose the ability to distinguish truth from fiction. Yeah, Yeah, Steve Trump. That's my term, by the way. I never heard that anywhere. I just call them Trumpkins. Um, but no, one other interesting thing. I think that the idea that if we give more and more and more, and you know where I'm at, I'm more of a libertarian, centrist. Um, a little more sort of governmentally conservative, a little more when it comes to government role. I tend to be more constitutionalist. When it comes to sort of social things, I tend to be more liberal. I don't know what that makes me, maybe something defying labels, but definitely more libertarian, I think. But the notion that when somebody argues with you, what are you afraid of? Like, I just don't think the government should be listening in on my phone calls. Well, what are you afraid of? Do you have something to hide? I just don't want government to know what my browser history is, right? Well, what happens? I mean, there literally are governments in which, a religious group like in Iran, like the Ayatollah, takes over, and then suddenly, you know, whatever your sort of healthy, as it were. What do you want to call it? Let's call it your mainstream R-rated movie searching suddenly becomes something punishable by death, right? The problem is, granted, I'm talking slippery slope here, but it's not without precedent. That's the bottom line. It's not without precedent historically that you give somebody enough power they can protect you, and then that power rests now with the government, irrespective of who the people are. Remember that government is people, and then now these people have power. So when somebody comes after you with what do you have, what are you worried about? Somebody looking in your browser? What are you, surfing porn? What do you look? Well, maybe you are, but what are you worried about in your browser history? Well, you know, this is not the question. So what you can't do is answer that and say, well, I'm not worried about anything, but you don't owe the first question. This is a gospel according to Chuck, okay? In my opinion, you don't owe anybody an answer to the first question, okay? You literally don't owe an answer. You say, that is not the question. The presumption is privacy. Government needs a compelling reason to violate my privacy as an individual. So, what is their justification? That's your question. That's the question to you. It can't be so you have to start with what's the presumption? Is the presumption that government can see whatever it wants, which I tend to see, by the way, more on the left and far less on the right. This idea that government has a right to see and to peer and to pry because, after all, they're trying to make your life better. You know, so that's kind of my take on that. If you've ever had to deal with that or get into an argument or discussion with somebody about what are you afraid of, that doesn't even matter. What I'm afraid of is irrelevant to the question. I have a presumption of privacy. What compelling reason do you have to violate my privacy? Me personally, not just generally, because again, a government that has the power to keep everybody perfectly safe has the power to round up Jews. I mean, not like that isn't without precedent in less than 100 years ago in civilized society, the first world, as it were. Nice. What is this one? Man considers. Is this? Wait, hang on, Dave. Is this like a an onion, like the onion? A social liberal and a fiscal racist? Satire. Okay. All right. Okay. I was wondering, like, well, because I don't know the hardtimes.net. Okay. I don't know the hard times. I know the onion, obviously. I know the Babylon Bee. I know there's a few satire sites that I know. Anyway, but does that make sense? Does that kind of make sense? You have to start, and this is what I like about kind of liberal leaning Babylon Bee. Nice, nice. Um, so my point is, where am I going with this? Um, well, I've probably made my point. Um, okay, so any other comments or things from 1984? This is like a third of everybody is in the 1984 or 1894 for you dorks that said that. What have I got?
Can I say something else?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't really know what to think of it or how to process it, but I found it really interesting that the root of the entire governmental structure was to exhibit power, which in that case was to make people's lives more miserable. I was
Yeah.
like, huh, I think that's interesting, but that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that, Brandon. Micah said, I haven't finished it yet. Excellent public confession. But a problem I've always had with dystopian fiction, and more particularly discussions around dystopian fiction, is that people always point at it and say, oh man, how did Orwell predict this future? And I want to just say, having not read Micah, the remainder of what you said, Orwell was writing more or less about the existing Soviet Union. He wasn't looking into the future, by the way. He put it in the future so he could add certain technologies, but the fundamental reality of not knowing who you can talk to because everybody's a spy for the government, a paranoid and terror, a paranoid environment is sort of that's where you're going. Okay, okay, I'm going to keep reading. Okay, so Micah said, and I don't think that's the point. It's not that these dystopian authors were predicting the future; they were commenting on their present. There you go. Yeah, so we're on the same page. We're on the same page. Our present is a direct result of that, which is why it seems like they were predicting the future, and that's my point. There you go. Right on. Right on. We are just like that. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And there is a thing, and this is one of the things that scares me the most about the sort of the restriction of expression, which is what scares me the most about cancel culture. And by the way, I want to say something. I saw an article. I was going to try to find it and I couldn't. Um, okay, no, 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 wait, 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 wait. I can find this. Just a second. Um, no, I don't have it. But I came across, whatever, you know what I mean? I bumped into an article, and it was about cancel culture. It was about canceled celebrities. Where are they now? And I thought, number one, that they botched the whole thing with the following thing, and this relates to 1984. Um, Relating to cancel culture, in my opinion, and my interpretation and understanding is you've expressed an opinion. You've said words. Your words fall outside the Overton window, and now your career is over. And they put into this thing, for example, um, Kevin Spacey, who was doing unspeakably horribly, what do we, I don't even know what we call them, sexual improprieties. Louis C.K., like literally like masturbating into a house plant with people watching. These are things that are beyond the pale. They are beyond the pale. So, for example, um, when back to Will Smith, when Will Smith walks up on stage and clocks Chris Rock and then gets banned from the Academy Awards for a decade, that's not cancel culture. That's called you did a physical thing, you assaulted somebody, or in the case of, who's the other creepo film guy, man, Harvey Weinstein. That's not cancel culture. That's called criminal activity for which there are repercussions. Okay. Then in the middle of all of it, they included, um, right. Brendan said people have, right. Woody Allen. So Daniel said Roman Polanski, Harvey Weinstein, Woody Allen. Right. Right. Kevin Spacey, Louis C.K., Bill Cosby. These are people who did things that were their behavior was outside the Overton window of any you know, if your behavior and your cancellation is only reprehensible to one political party, then it's not the Overton window is not in play. The Overton window needs to be a broader idea than that. Okay, and so um, anyway, and then they were other individuals who were sort of attempted to be canceled, like J.K. Rowling. Um, uh, who's my guy? Who's my guy? Dave Chappelle, right? And these were people, in the case of Chappelle, who's a comedian whose job is to push the boundaries. And so, remember, we had the conversation about words versus violence. What Will Smith did was violence. What Chris Rock did was words. What Will Smith did was violence. They are not the same. They might partake of a flavor, but they're not the same thing. Again, gospel according to Chuck. Um, but anyway, but they had mixed together. About two-thirds of the people were people whose behavior was borderline criminal or even actually criminal. And then the other third were people who had said words which offended leftist sensitivities. To me, those are, and I don't care what political side you offend and get canceled for. In my view, most cancel culture today is brought about by leftists, but it's not exclusively the way. But it has to do with an ideological ban because of thought crime. Back to night. See, you see the fluid. You see me bringing it back around, pulling hard. Yeah, thought crime. That cancel culture is about punishment for thought crime. That is about the best way I can put cancel culture in a nutshell. If I rob a store, knock off a 7-Eleven, and I get arrested and I was a celebrity, that's not cancel culture. That's called grand theft or larceny or armed robbery. Okay, that's my pitch. Again, you get to disagree with me as always, and I still respect your opinion. You ought to, I hope, respect my right to be wrong, and then I in turn will respect your right to be wrong. Um, Dave said he read 1984 years ago with a reduced vocabulary. Yeah, yeah, or was it Fahrenheit 451? That's another really good one though. I don't. More on good. I think was 1984. Let me see. Yeah, and 1984 had Newspeak. Um, so Dave, I was trying to find that article. Um, I'll see if I can find it. Yeah, no, here it is. I found it. Oh, okay, yeah. Anyway, and I just think it's horrible. I don't agree with it. Um, you know. So from Will Smith, who physically assaulted somebody, to Dave Chappelle, who said words that you don't have to agree with, to Louis C.K., who was, whipping his junk out every time somebody turned around. These are not the same, you know, some Hollywood celebs are handling being canceled better than others. Here's the latest, et cetera. And the examples were Kevin Spacey was committed sexual assault, basically. James Franco, either sexual assault or something like it. Marilyn Manson, sexual assault. Army Hammer, I don't really know almost anything about. Um, again, a sexual assault. The baby, no idea whatsoever. Gina Carano, it literally says Gina Carano, the former MMA fighter turned Mandalorian star, enraged some fans with a series of politically charged social media posts. Translation: she said things on social media that certain people, in particular, people on the left, didn't like. That's cancellation, in my opinion. Chrissy Teigen, um, yeah, telling people to kill themselves, that to me is outside the Overton window. That's inciting violence. Matt Damon admitted that he used to use a homophobic slur that he stopped. That to me at least falls more into the category of cancellation in the sense that it's words that he said he doesn't say anymore. Louis C.K. essentially just it's I think it's I don't even know what it is. It's like sexual assault. Dave Chappelle, words. J.K. Rowling, words. Faye Dunaway created a hostile, dangerous environment. Slapping a crew member, that's assault. Will Smith, that's assault. Kanye, Kanye. Dear. Cyberbullying. That's against the law. Okay, there we go. Okay, so anyway, that's the article. That's you just you know the rules of our class. You know, Chuck gets to say words. We all get to express things, and then we all have the right to be wrong, including me. And you're not accountable to my opinions, and that's the beautiful thing. I just want to say it again. That's kind of, I guess, my protection in terms of cancellation. I'd like to be able to feel like we everybody can say things, and some of you have said things I flat out disagree with, and in some cases we've had off what do you call it, offline conversations that are amazing and fantastic, and that's what I think should be happening. That's the danger of cancel culture over words. Is I have to presume, I guess, that Chappelle is whatever and J.K. Rowling is whatever, and instead of giving benefit of the doubt and having a dialogue, an actual discussion. um, Brandon, not a lot of celebrities I can think of that are actual cancel culture victims. Gina Carano was a really big one, though. I agree. As was J.K. Rowling, I think. No, no. Carano was actually small enough that she could more or less be canceled, lose her job. J.K. Rowling is big enough, already a billionaire, so it's a little bit like an FU. Um, Chappelle, same thing, big FU. You know. Um, Okay, Jake. So we're back to 1940. Then I'm going to kick to some other topics, other books. Did anyone catch the significance of the diner and the chess set? In the middle of the book, it talked about some group of traders who frequented there. Oh man, I don't remember, Jake. I really don't remember. Um, this methodology is wild. Assault and opinions in the same breath is crazy. Dave, I agree with you. Steve, who has been a victim of cancel culture? Well, do you guys watch and I don't want to get totally off on this. There was the CBS video do you remember, Steve? It was the CBS News sort of special edition on cancel culture, where among the people were um, oh, who was the guy? Who was the guy? He was one of the founders of the Young Turks, who was then running for Congress. Who's the guy? I, I want to say Serge Tankian. Clearly not the right guy. Um, I can picture him. Anyway, yeah, I think that answers part of the question, Steve, is, who's been the victim of cancel culture. Um, I also have a book that Cenk, yeah, Cenk Iger. Yep, exactly, Kristen. That's one that they talked about. And that's an interesting one because Cenk is clearly, a Democrat, and I think he's pretty left. I think he's whatever Sean Hannity is to the right. I think Cenk Iger, I think it's Iger, is that far on the left. I think he's very, very left leaning. Anyway, let's get off that. I want to come back to, anyway, 1984. Let me just go quick survey for the 1984 folks, whoever's read it. Um, the survey says, I really enjoyed 1984. The book, not the year. I remember the year. 1984 was not a bad year as years go. Okay, let's take it back up. Take it back up. Back. Okay, Braden, how many? Let me see. Who else did like sci-fi? Braden did the Foundation, right? That was the Foundation trilogy, Braden, right?
I read just the first one so far.
Okay. Um, with Asimov, you get some of the effect, of the trilogy, but again, the idea is sort of prediction of the evolution of humanity. I don't know how much of that do you really get at this point.
Um, in the first book alone, you kind of understand like how stagnation can lead to the entire fall of empires and like how crucial it is to not only keep proper record of everything that you have, but also constantly be exploring, because the minute you stop, you like lose your understanding of everything. And one of the major points in the book was that because people stopped researching like nuclear technologies, nuclear technicians stopped being trained, and then
Mm.
entire empires lost the ability to use nuclear power.
Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. Did you enjoy it so far?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it's a fantastic book, and one of the reasons why I wanted to read it was because I'd always heard that it was like foundational for, funny enough,
Yeah. No. No pun. Yeah.
foundational for the sci-fi genre, and it's crazy reading it, and you can totally tell, like, oh yeah, a ton of
Kind of
of
like current tropes that sort of started
yeah,
back then. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, Asimov, you get that right. Arthur C. Clarke, Isaac Asimov. There's a set. Robert Heinlein. There's a number of these kind of classic sci-fi authors that kind of invented the whole the whole genre just about in the 50s, and it's
yeah.
kind of a yeah, visionaries. Okay, awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Let me move on. Let me see. Daniel's not done yet, so we can talk later about that one on the three body problem. Um, Let me see. Frozen Deep Work. What is that one about?
That's the one where he's talking about like as technologies progress pretty much that quite often when we get so distracted with like emails and text messages and all that that we actually don't let ourselves go into like a deeper focus because it takes time to be able to do that and we're just too easily distracted. But as technology is advancing, we need more deep work to be able to continue to pretty much progress that deep work.
Fascinating.
But it was one of the ones on your list, so
Yeah,
I haven't finished it yet, but it's been pretty interesting because he's just talking about we need it more, but we're also much more easily distracted by technology.
yeah,
And so he started talking about like the open floor plans and stuff like that that a lot of businesses put out now because they
right.
want to be able to socialize, but it's actually made it to where there's a lot of busy work, but it's not really actually like deep thought into it
Yeah,
anymore.
exactly. No, and I think that it relates a lot to the social dilemma, right? That constant when
Yeah,
we
I was
all
just
get
thinking that too.
yeah, we all get more we experience more anxiety. I mean, especially certain younger, age demographics, but my age demographic as well. There's sort of an increase in anxiety everywhere. And I think that the fact that we can't just like sit still and watch a sunset or drill into some work that's going to take us 3 hours, because it's just constant ding ding, little alarms going off, badges telling, little alerts, a constant interrupt. So you'd recommend it so far?
Yeah, I think it's definitely got some interesting points to
Cool. All right. Okay, let me keep going.
it and some
And then, by the
good
way,
learning from it.
oh wait, who else? Cash also said deep work. Cache of knowledge. Cache. Am I having interweb problems? Can you hear me? Hello. Yeah, I think. Let me see. Let's keep going. I'll come back. I'm sure I'll be back. Am I back now? Okay, right. Yeah, no, everything kind of went weirdly frozen on my side. No, who was the other one that also read or is reading Deep Work, Cache of Knowledge? You want to pipe up at all? Are you there? Oh, yeah, no. So, Cash, uh, the question is, what did you think of Deep Work, or are you through it? Just anything else to add to? Uh, Crap, who was it? Who was talking earlier? Was
I mean,
Frozen.
Frozen Havoc.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, yeah, just anything you got, Cash, that you wanted to add on that. And you can do it audio or text. I'm going to let you just keep typing, and we'll kick to the next one because we can try to get through these. Sam, Blood, Sweat, and Pixels. Did anybody else do that one? I don't think anybody did. What was your take on that one?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. I thought it was interesting. It's not laid out like mm, most books I've read. Each chapter kind of tells its own story. It's about game development,
Okay.
and kind of the struggles of getting a computer or using a computer artistically.
Right.
And like the successes and failures. But I haven't entirely finished it, by the way.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Fair.
I'm mostly done. A lot of it kind of revolves around crunch, which is like the last couple months before a game comes out. Every person's working like 100-hour weeks,
Right.
just to get it done. And then like a lot of compromises get made, and then they like leave the company for 2 months to recover.
Right. That phase, by the way, is what I call falling off the end of the world. You
Yeah.
crunch. You go into crunch mode, and then when you're done, there has to be compensatory downtime because
Yeah.
your body's not built to go, to sprint a marathon.
Oh yeah.
And then a lot of, and at the end of that, there's a lot of divorces, there's a lot of depression, a lot of human cost.
Yeah. And it kind of dives into that a little bit, but it's pretty
Yeah.
open-ended. It's
Okay.
more informative,
That's
I
cool.
guess.
All
But
right.
it's
Thank
a good
you.
read.
Yeah. Okay. Let me keep going. What do we have up next? Jesse, Creativity Inc. Anybody else do that one besides Jesse? I read that one some time back myself and loved it. Like really, really loved it. What was what do you think, Jesse? You can also talk. Okay, yeah, type away. And then back to Cash on deep work. Sorry, yeah, text. I think it's great. More like a self-help book. Basically, just recommends learning how to work deep. It argues that we need more deep work nowadays, but are getting more and more service work. Okay, yeah, same. Yeah, so Jesse, drop what you can there, and I'm gonna kick. I just want to say I loved Creativity Inc. Because that notion of how you get creative product. You know what I mean? How do you do creative things? It's kind of critical. Okay, Spencer, Weapons of Math Destruction. I have it and have not read it yet. And did anybody else do Weapons of Math Destruction? I don't think so. What was your take, Spencer? Yo, yo.
Right, can you hear me?
Yeah, hear you just great.
All right, I haven't finished it yet, but I thought it was super interesting. Kathy O'Neill was one of the people that they interviewed on Social Dilemma, so that's how I
Oh,
knew about
okay.
it. It referenced her book in that. But anyways, I thought it was really interesting. She just talked about how algorithms sometimes are, there's no basis or there's no like there's no feelings involved when you're messing with algorithms. And she talks about that and how it's sometimes destroying democracy in that way. It's really interesting. She talks about one instance in New York where I think there were some struggling schools and they ended up having Princeton, I think, write an algorithm for them to test their teachers and how they're performing. And it ended up weeding out, some of the better teachers as far as the parents and
Huh.
students like them. But anyways, I haven't finished it yet, but I really
Okay.
like it so far.
Cool. All right, let me jump to Ignorance, How It Drives Science. I did read that one, but it's been a while. That one, right? I think that's Matthew and Brendan. And I think that's the only ones that had that book. What's your take on it? And then while you're mustering up, did we lose audio again? Gidded said, can't hear me. Just you. Just you, I guess. Jesse said, not quite done, but I think a big thing that I've seen so far, this is Creativity Inc., is that a sense of vision is huge in the book because Ed Catmull could have worked for other people and left his dreams on the side. When you have a vision, you do a lot to make that dream that you had become a reality. Yeah, right on, right on. Brendan said, haven't quite finished it, but I've enjoyed how he uses ignorance as a tool of learning. In society, I often see people use ignorance as an insult more than anything else. We talked a lot about that right at the beginning of the class with the orders of ignorance. So to focus on the good parts of all that we don't know is really nice. Never really thought of how much we've gained by not knowing things, right? But that's the same speech, right? Isn't that my speech about how, you know, all learning happens on the frontier of ignorance, right? Okay, let me back up. Back. Okay, Radioactive Kingpin. I have it and have not read it. What say you? Audio or text is fine. Is Radioactive still in? Duh. Criminal. I think Radioactive dropped. Okay, let's keep going. And I haven't read Kingpin. Andreval, Hackers, one of my favorite books of all time, actually. Hackers, Heroes of the Computer Revolution. Oh, you haven't started on yet. Yeah, get moving, man. Get moving. Okay, but it's a little long, but you can pound it out in a week. I love it. I love that book, Stephen Levy. Okay, Mac, A Scanner Darkly. Talk to me. You there, Mac? Once again, audio's fine and typing is fine. No, get it. All I saw was you said can't hear you, Dr. K. So that's all. All right. So Mac's typing a little summary. Let me kick back up and keep moving then. This is interesting to get everybody's perspective on these. Where are we at? Where are we at? Radiant. Reality is broken. I swear I might have that one, but I don't think I've. If I have it, I haven't read it. What say you, Radiant? And then get it. You're on deck with algorithms of oppression. Radiant is typing. Yeah. Get it? Do you want to? I guess everybody's typing right now. So do you want to either share verbally or do a type on the algorithms of oppression?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I don't know if Dr. K can.
Yep, I can hear you now.
Okay, cool. So algorithms person was really good. She brought up a couple different things that I had not thought of. So one was that as a researcher, it's really difficult to do research on technology because it changes so quickly. You're trying to crystallize this point of time and look at it and turn it around and poke at it. And she's basically researching how search engines promote racist, sexist ideology online.
Interesting.
She started researching in 2011. She basically runs you through a couple of searches that she did. And so, for example, one of the ones that she ran that prompted her to do this research is she just searched black girls, and like the whole like first like 3 pages was like porn.
Wow.
She felt that was very problematic. Obviously, that has changed. It doesn't show you that anymore.
Okay. Why is that? Why is that obvious that it hasn't changed? Why? Okay. You said obviously that has changed. Why is that obvious that has changed? I mean,
Well,
did like
they just got a lot of
Google
heat.
found out, or like
Yeah,
somehow? Okay.
yeah.
I mean,
I
I'm
mean, they were
glad.
pretty.
I'm glad, right?
Mhm. The UN actually had a campaign against certain types of algorithms that were promoting like gender violence in particular.
Right,
Like
right,
if you searched things like women should, like the autocorrect, the autocomplete would be like women should not
don't
speak out in church or should stay
right.
at home
Yeah,
or
don't even read these, right? Don't
right.
read these on the air. No, right. But what and like with the social dilemma, it's that idea that search engines are not just dealing up, well, they're partially tuning to what you want based upon other things it knows you're doing. Once
Well, what
again,
she's
a subjective view of reality.
right, what she's saying is not what you want, but it's actually um, what the programmers want. So similar to
Okay,
what Tristan Harris has said a lot in his stuff, and he's the social dilemma guy,
right,
and he has an NGO called Center for Humane Technology. Basically, like a lot of people that look the same from a similar demographic making decisions for like billions of people.
right,
Um,
right.
and what she's saying is the difficulty with that is that we see machines as like moral, like not having moral like judgment, but we're
Yeah,
making decisions that affect a lot of people as technologists, and she's saying we should not. It's unjust and just untrue for us to think about the technology as being amoral.
wow, wow. No, I like that. I like that a lot. That sounds great. Again, I don't know if I have that one. It feels like I do, but I don't. If I do have it, I haven't read it. Okay, let me kick over Radiant. What was the book again, Radiant? It was, let me scroll back up. Lost my context. Come on, man. Where's my Oh, reality's broken. Radiant, yeah, thank you. I just saw your text now. I haven't finished yet, but it's interesting so far. I've grown up hearing all different sides of the political spectrum decry video games as bad. So it's been interesting to see the good things they can bring. Cool. All right. Um, Let me see. Matthew also read Ignorance. It's been really good so far. Talks about how the public often thinks of science as a collection of facts, but really it is driven by what we don't know. Searching for a black cat in a dark room. Science is often adapted over time as we learn more and even proven wrong. So the things that we treat as impossible to change can be dangerous. We don't know everything, not that we can't lean on scientific facts, but that science works by asking questions about what we don't know and what doesn't make sense in our current models. Often those answers adapt or disprove what we thought we knew. We're exactly right. This is why my view that one can never, with a straight face and with academic and scientific integrity, ever say the science is settled. It is an offensive statement, in my opinion, to ever say that. It decries, it betrays the fundamental essence of what science actually is, which is a never-ending quest, and often begins by questioning some of the things that are sort of, supposedly, well known, or the current view of whatever happens to be the case. Because we learn more things about all kinds of stuff. Okay. Oh, Kim says, "Oh, I read Algorithms of Oppression too. Didn't complete it yet." That's our common theme. Nobody's finished their books. But I did some more research on Google's racial bias, and I guess their facial recognition was doing weird. Right, I've seen that as well, that their facial recognition was doing weird racist stuff too. A lot of software doesn't take into account people of color. Absolutely. And there's similar things with, they go back even 20, 30 years with the discovery or the realization that standardized tests had, I don't think a standardized test per se has a racial bias, but certainly a cultural bias where certain, sort of cultural dynamics have a certain overrepresentation, if you will, of certain kinds of racial or ethnic dynamics, if that makes sense, right? Does that make sense? In other words, it really at the end of the day is about culture and not about race per se, but does overlap where there's a strong correlation between race and culture or ethnicity and culture. But for example, using certain words that are maybe, in a standardized test that are well known, by the culture of the test writers, who then historically would have been, educated white folks. Um, and maybe going, depending on how far back you go, predominantly white men, right? So then you're going to have a certain kind of language that is going to be difficult to understand, but you're trying to gauge IQ, or you're trying to, do college entrance, things like that. Um, so, I'm a big believer in, the reality that there's that kind of cultural bias built in to certain things like that, right? Okay, Mac, The Scanner Darkly is about a futuristic view of a police force trying to crack down on a new drug called Substance D. Arctor, the main character, is sent to figure out the origin of it, and the story is interesting as he gets too involved, ends up taking the drug and getting messed up because of it. Sounds like Limitless. There's a scramble suit that hides his identity from the police, but his identity is all screwy amongst two very different factions of police force and addicts. The scramble suit idea is very cool. You can see how it affects the character's identity from himself and how they're seen. That sounds amazing. Who's the author, Mac, of The Scanner Darkly? Or A Scanner Darkly? The Scanner Darkly? All right, we're almost out of time. Let me kick back up while I'm waiting for Mac to answer that. Oh, A Scanner Darkly. Dave, manufacturing consent. Drake Lord, a reality is broken, which I think we already started talking about. Anything you want to add to those? And then, is that it? I think that might actually be it. So those of you that haven't gone yet, or that I just mentioned yours, either drop in the chat or pipe up. Oh, Philip K. Dick, of course. That guy, man, that guy was a visionary. Brilliant, brilliant. Way ahead of his time. Okay, what do you got? Okay, Dave says manufacturing consent is about propaganda, specifically how the authors claim it works even outside fascist regimes. A central claim is that there's a sort of American ideal and ethos, and journalists tend to focus on stories that reinforce the status quo and ignore the stories that challenge the status quo. Yeah. Okay. No, I like that. Right. And the since bias is undeniable and you can't get rid of it, you at least have to do your very, very best to be open to admitting it. Starting with politics. I remember the statement some time back about somebody at the New York Times. This was something from 20 years ago, where somebody from the New York Times had made the statement. I don't remember it's now an urban legend, but basically the comment that she didn't actually know any Republicans, that she literally didn't know a single person who was a Republican. And I just think, again, I don't care which side of this we're talking about. If you're a Republican and you literally don't know a single Democrat, man, I think you're doing it wrong. And similarly, if you're a Democrat and you don't have any, friends that are Republicans, I think you're doing it wrong. In fact, I saw a thing. I was a friend of mine who tends to be fairly. He's a lawyer, licensed attorney, and tends to be fairly conservative. And he made some comment, and he has a friend that happens to be pretty leftist and happens to engage in a lot of logical fallacies. And let me be really, really clear, right? I think you already know this about me. I am not making a statement that Democrats and leftists engage in logical fallacies. They do, but so do conservatives and Republicans. And so does everybody across the spectrum, because everybody's an idiot, including me sometimes. But you know what I mean? Anyway, but this friend of his that he'd gone to law school with, he posted a question about something, and the friend actually said something to the effect of, he literally said something like, okay, now you're something to the effect of, you're treading on the boundary of where I have to stop being your friend. Now, this is a guy, like I said, I've waded in occasionally, and I found him to be very inflammatory, very given to ad hominem attacks and a variety of logical fallacies, who I think is not as smart as he thinks he is, and certainly not as logical as he thinks he is. And I'm thinking, where's the line? I mean, and I know this guy that he's talking to, and I'm like, that guy's behavior, that's it? You can't be his friend? Because as we all know, you have to agree with everything in order to be friends. So Chomsky, okay, back to Dave. Chomsky always brings up global politics like I should be up to speed on all the atrocities of the Guatemalan and Nicaraguan regimes. It's all new to me, and I feel like my history class has failed me. Why do we focus so heavily on World War II? I think because it was so extreme. That's my own view, but it was so extreme, and yet it was so hard to fight back and win. I don't know. I mean, I was born, 13 years after World War II ended. Steve, I like to remain unaware of their political status so we can discuss all the issues this country has to offer. I feel if you choose a party, you draw a line in the sand and feel you can't cross it. I agree with this, Steve, but what I would say is when you attach yourself to a political party, what I noticed, having been in a political party and then left it to become an independent, what I found was it's a little bit like team sports. You get real attached to your team, you know, da, 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 and it's game day and it's the adrenaline and you're so excited. And hang on, Brandon, 10 points to Dumbledore if I say something to that lawyer. I almost did. But what I was going to say was something smart ass like, yeah, because we have to all agree on the same things in order to be friends. But the guy's he's a putz, and I've decided I'll sacrifice the 10 points. Yeah, Dave, no, you're right. But so it's a little bit like it's like team sports. And you're wearing the team colors, like I got my UVU green on, and you care because it's your team. And all of a sudden you don't have a team, and you're just like I remember I grew up really loving baseball. Went to Dodgers. I was born in LA, and as a little kid went to like Dodger Stadium, and followed the Dodgers until probably, I don't know, at least until I was 20. But sometime in my late 20s, they canceled the World Series over a players' strike, and I went on strike. I was so upset that I went on strike and just boycotted. And I don't think I've watched a full baseball game since that time. That was the late 80s. So what is that? About 35 years that I haven't watched a Major League Baseball game. Don't care. Dodgers, don't care. Teams I used to care about, don't care. Who are the players? I don't know. And I just don't care. So politically, a similar thing happened when I became independent. It's a little bit like, I could see more readily how almost everybody that I knew, not everybody, but almost everybody that I knew in both major parties at some level was playing team politics and losing objectivity and engaging in logical fallacy. That was my bottom line. Okay, where are we at? Root for the baseball, Sam. Yeah. Okay, jazz I still kind of care about. I have to admit, Dave. I still kind of care about the jazz. Except the part where they break your heart forever. I was a jazz fan back in the Stockton to Malone days. But anyway, listen, we're about out of time. I hope the extra books were interesting and fed more, further, more deeply some of these ideas that you could, drill down. Yeah, we are going to get bounced. Yeah. Alrighty, amigos, and let's see where are we at. When we come back, we're gonna talk about employment and just jobs, interviewing, negotiating for salaries, and it's going to be a lot driven by your kind of questions and conversations, starting with these articles that I've dropped for you to give you a little more of a kickstart. So that's all I got. I hope that you enjoyed the discussion. I did, and I'm still thinking about Nikos. Nikos is still on the table. Am I audio dead? Am I dead? All right, I think I'm back, but we're done. Later.